Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's an NFL writer for the Associated Press and the host of Faith on the Field. Please welcome Rob Maaddi to the program. Rob, it's great to have you on. How are you?
John, it's always great to talk to you, man. I appreciate it.
What do you make of the Bears-Packers game on Sunday night, first off?
It wasn't surprising that the Packers were able to bounce back from a dud in week one. I thought they were going to have a better showing against Minnesota, and once they came out kind of flat in that game, it was expected that they would have an easier time with the Bears. Aaron Rodgers, as he'll tell you, owns the Chicago Bears. I believe now he's about 23-5 against the Bears. But from Chicago's perspective, there were some things that you saw from Justin Fields that give you some hope for the future. I just think he's so early in his process and so inexperienced that he's still some time away from figuring out how to play this quarterback position in the NFL and having success at doing it. But you know that the talent is still there. But clearly, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers still own the NFC North. And if there was any doubt that Minnesota may give them a run for their money, especially after they beat them in week one, I think the performance by the Vikings on Monday Night Football in Philly against the Eagles really leaves no doubt that the North is going to go through Lambeau Field and the Packers. And in the end, I anticipate they'll be the ones winning that division.
What concerns you most about Justin Fields right now based on what you've seen so far?
I think with Justin, it's got to be his decision making, and I think sometimes just some of the tells and making sure he's not giving away what they're going to do, and also some of the footwork. I think I watch football oftentimes, John, while I'm writing, while I'm working, so I don't get to listen to the analysts or what they're pointing out or what they're saying. I did see where they were talking about his footwork at one point, but didn't hear the extent of it. But that's normal with a young quarterback. I think mechanically, these are things that you have to work on and work through. And sometimes when you're in college and you dominate, or you're among the top 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks, a lot of that is based on talent alone. And once you get to the NFL, you realize that there are going to be changes that need to be made. And those changes involve, sometimes it's mechanics, oftentimes a lot of it is, I spoke to Sauce Gardner, a cornerback for the Jets, rookie corner, a couple of weeks ago, and he highlighted to me, pointed out to me the film work, the film study. And that's at his position as a corner, where, he used to have to just focus on the other team's top receiver. Now you do that in the NFL and it's magnified. You got to know the playbook inside and out. You got to know the other team's tendencies inside and out. And now from a quarterback position, I think those are things that young guys learn as they progress in this league. Look at what Tom Brady has been able to do and continue to be elite at age 45. And a lot of that is the film work, the study work. Now, we know his workouts are legendary, and he's been able to stay in healthy and in great shape throughout his career. But it's the mental aspect of the game that I think Justin's going to work on, and I have no reason to feel that he won't be able to get up to par and to progress. Now, John, you look at Jalen Hurts, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Eagles, but the leap that it appears, it's year 3 for Jalen. Year 2 as a full-time starter, and his performance on Monday night against the Vikings was sensational. And the questions about him were, can he make a leap from year 1 as a starter to year 2 as a starter? And there's no reason to believe that Justin Fields, as talented as he is, can't eventually make that leap. He's certainly not there yet. But if you're a Bears fan, there's reason for hope and optimism.
How similar do you think Fields' path is to Jalen Hurts, like you mentioned?
Well, Jalen's got a ton of weapons around him right now. They brought in A.J. Brown, who had a big game in week 1. Devontae Smith was a first-round pick, and he had a big game in week 2. They have the league's #1 running offense, but I think and a dominant offensive line. But beyond that, I think what Jalen has is now finally, for the first time in his career, continuity at the game plan. Offensive coordinators the same, head coaches the same, 2 years in a row as a starter. He had been in a different offensive system for like the last 4 or 5 years going back to college. So that helps. I think if Justin can have some continuity, if the Bears can develop around him and bring in some weapons, I think they certainly need to protect him. They got to do a better job. They got to be able to run the football. In Philly, as great as the Eagles' rushing offense is, much of that is predicated upon Jalen Hurts. He was their leading rusher last year. He scored the 2 touchdowns the other night against Minnesota, and he's a big part of why they are so successful on the ground, and that allows them to keep teams off balance. And you saw him throw for 333 yards and complete 83% of his passes. So the Bears are certainly a ways away from that. They're not there yet. They need better talent around Justin Fields. They need to be able to maximize his ability. And I think what they've done in Philly, John, so well is at a point last season in Nick Sirianni's rookie year as a head coach, when they started off and they struggled. And they were trying to fit Jalen Hurts into an offensive system that really wasn't catered for him. And what they did was emphasize the run. And that allowed them to take off and have success and make it to the playoffs in a rebuilding year with a rookie head coach and a first-year starting quarterback. And what the Bears should do and take from that is you cater your offense to the skills of your quarterback. You can't try and force him to do something he's not comfortable doing. And Jalen is now getting better at doing that. And that's why I think if the Bears bring in some talent around him, make sure he's comfortable in the system, and try to emphasize his talent and ability, you could see down the road maybe some success later this year, some building points, some building blocks to where next year they can carry that over.
Do you think they should add more running to Fields' repertoire and agenda on the field? Would that help him out?
I think, you never want your quarterback to be your leading rusher. He was for Philly last year, and he very well might be Jalen Hurts this year. But we've seen him have success doing it. We've seen Lamar Jackson clearly have a ton of success doing that in Baltimore. The question then becomes is sustainability, John. How long can you win with a quarterback taking hits, taking shots, and being your leading rusher? I think early on in a guy's career, they can handle it much better. We know that. And to allow Justin Fields to open up the offense a little bit more, I think you do have to design and incorporate what he does best, and that's improvise and allow him to run the football, some RPOs. The Eagles are a great RPO team, and I think that's something that teams that have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who can beat you with his arm and beat you with his legs and has that ability, I think you have to look at that and make that an effective part of your offense, because that's only going to help your run game, and that's going to open up your pass.
Rob Maaddi here on Sports Talk Chicago. Rob, how surprised are you that the Eagles are 2-0 right now?
I thought that they would go to Detroit and beat the Lions. I expected that the Vikings would do better, and I had them winning a close game. So I thought the Eagles would be at 1-1. It didn't surprise me that they won their home opener, though, with that crowd, with the way Kirk Cousins struggles in primetime games. It wasn't that big of a surprise. However, John, what surprises me more than the 2-0, because I could have seen them starting the year off at 2-0 and potentially 3-0 going to Washington. And then Jacksonville comes in. They could very well be 4-0, but it's the way they got there. It's the dominant defensive effort in week 2 and the breakout performance by Jalen Hurts in week 2 that, to me, speaks volumes about where this team is right now. And then you look on the defensive side, the way they shut down Minnesota, but Darius Slay stepping in. He doesn't like when you call him Darius. He just wants to be called Slay, John. Anytime you do an interview with him, he's like, I'm just Slay. He wants to be called. So the way Slay stepped up, 2 picks, really shut down Justin Jefferson, I think was a tremendous effort on his part. I said during the game, he's earning some All-Pro votes. Forget about Pro Bowl, because everybody makes it. All-Pro, the AP All-Pro roster is what's the most that really determines the elite. That's very prestigious, and I think he earned himself in that primetime performance against Justin Jefferson some All-Pro votes for sure. And to see the Eagles now dominating on defense and having an offense that's capable of beating you various ways, I think that's what's most surprising through 2 weeks.
I remember we talked probably in March, and there were some questions about Jalen Hurts and his future with the Eagles. It seems like he's shutting everybody up right now.
It seems like it, and I feel like each week in Philly, John, it's really like a referendum on is Jalen Hurts the quarterback of the future. And after week one against Detroit, where he he made a ton of great plays, there were still some questions because there was some indecision in the pocket, some quick reads, 1-2 run rather than go through his full progression. And then from week one to week two, significant improvement there. My biggest concern, if I were an Eagles fan, is that you reach the end of this year and you still don't have a clear-cut, definitive answer on whether or not Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the future. More performances like he put up against Minnesota, and that's certainly going to be answered. But if he's a little bit ineffective in the pocket, if his decision making leaves a little bit to be desired, there are still going to be some folks out there who question whether or not you can win with him. I said last week, maybe this is who Jalen Hurts is. He's going to be week to week guy. He's a dynamic playmaker. You're going to have to live with some indecision, some mistakes, but you're also going to see a guy who can make great plays on the move. There was a 32-yard pass or a 40-yard pass. He threw it 40 yards, completed it for 32 because he was behind the line of scrimmage on the move, turned to Quez Watkins, I believe it was. It was called back because of a penalty. I don't know if it was a legal man downfield or holding, but for him to go through his reads and then roll out to his left, turn his body, shift his hips, throw the ball on a dime where it had to be. It was a big-time throw. And I think big-time throws like that are going to become more a part of his repertoire. So if I were to have to, and this happens in Philly, you got to make a decision week in and week out. If I had to make a decision after week two on Jalen Hurts as a franchise quarterback, I'm more in than I am more out.
Do you think that maintains and holds up the test of time at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's the big question. And right now, the Eagles are fortunate enough to have those playmakers around him, have that defense where they can win games. I believe they'll win the NFC East. Dak Prescott getting hurt in Dallas, and I know it didn't affect them in the first game with Cooper Rush, but I think that's only going to set up the Eagles nicely for a nice run here in the NFC East. It doesn't mean winning the division means you have a clear-cut answer. I think how you play in January determines what you look at going forward. Now, last year against Tampa in the playoffs, they looked like a team that didn't belong on the field. And Jalen Hurts looked like a guy who wasn't capable of winning big games for you. The question has always been, you can win games with Jalen Hurts. Can you win games because of Jalen Hurts? Last night against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football, he proved that they won because of him, not with him. And if he continues to do that throughout the season, then you're going to have that answer that, yeah, he's that guy. He's that franchise guy, and he's going to set himself up for a nice payday. Right now, he's on his rookie contract, John. And that means for the Eagles, they're one of the few teams getting away with paying a quarterback very little money in this day and age when guys are making 30, 35, 40, 45, $50 million, taking up all of that salary cap. It'd be great for them if they can figure this out with him right now and continue to move forward.
How far do you think they go? If they have a good enough defense and the offense continues to get better, Jalen Hurts gets better, are they going to be a NFC championship team, Super Bowl team? What do you think?
You know, initially at the beginning of the season, I didn't think so. I didn't see the Eagles as a Super Bowl contender. I saw them as an NFC East champion who would be a 4 seed and had an opportunity to potentially be one and done, losing to a team like San Francisco at the wild card spot. And right now, they're kind of showing me that they can be in the conversation for 2 or 3. Some people want to get all excited about week 2 and put them out. They're the best team in the NFC right away. And I still think Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a little bit to say about that because their defense is terrific in Tampa. You know, their offense at some point when they get healthy, they are so banged up front on the offensive line. They don't have anybody. They're bringing in Cole Beasley because they have no weapons for Tom Brady. Once they get healthy at wide receiver and Evans is playing and Godwin's playing and Julio Jones, we don't know about him week in or week out. But you got Russell Gage. Now you add Cole Beasley. at some point, I anticipate fully that Tom Brady calls Rob Gronkowski, whether it's at Thanksgiving dinner or sometime around there. You bring him back, and I think they'll still be the team to emerge. But right now, the Eagles are putting themselves through 2 weeks in the conversation to where they go from being that fourth seed, a team that's potentially a one and done, to one that can make some noise in January. And obviously, we got 15 weeks to go. It's a long season in the NFL, and things can change extremely quickly and very dramatically.
What do you make of Jimmy G returning? Could that put the 49ers back in that conversation too?
Yeah, John, I've said all along that the best thing that the Niners could do is keep Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, and they found a way to do it. And it had to do a lot with, well, one, his health. He had surgery that diminished his trade value. Nobody was going to give up anything or pay that contract to someone coming off shoulder surgery. And then he goes through this very strange training camp where he's just working out on his own at the team facility. Yet I thought at some point they were going to turn it over to Jimmy Garoppolo because they got a good enough team to win and to win with him now. And I didn't think Trey Lance is ready. You look at what Jimmy G has done. He's just won. And last year he was a dropped interception away from taking the team back to the Super Bowl. If Jakeski Tart on San Francisco would hold on to a pass that Stafford put up late in the game, is in his hands, he drops it. Rams go on to score and win that football game. Garoppolo would have been back in the Super Bowl with 3 impressive road wins, right? Instead, they lose, and all of a sudden, they're moving on to Trey Lance. It's unfortunate what's happened to Trey Lance, but I think it also tells you how much this team's chances improved, because even in Vegas, the odds, I believe, went from 25-1 to 18-1. A team loses its starting quarterback and goes to the veteran backup, and their Super Bowl odds improve from 25-1 to 18-1. It tells you right there that Jimmy G should have been the guy all along. And if he can stay healthy, which has been a question throughout his career, but if he can stay healthy, John, I think the Niners are set up to potentially win that NFC West, challenge the Rams for the NFC West, or go the wild card route again.
Well, at least the Bears could say they beat him, even if it was with Trey Lance. So. Rob Maaddi still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Rob, a few more questions before we finish up. First off, Faith on the field. How's it been going?
It's been fantastic, John, and I really love having Faith on the field on Sports Talk Chicago and across the country. It's been tremendous, and we appreciate being able to do that. And we got some great guests lined up coming up. Tim Tebow's back. Tim Tebow's like a monthly guest. He's coming back this week. I had a great conversation with Aaron Donald, the first interview after the helmet tossing incident, and we aired everything on all these other venues, but I didn't, the faith element to Aaron Donald, I didn't air that part yet. So I'm going to have that coming up on Faith on the Field. And it's just been a wonderful opportunity as we continue to grow.
What's the best story or testimony you've heard on the show?
Man, I'll tell you so many different stories that I've heard from different guys along the way. I thought just last week I had Ryan Succop, who was a kicker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And his first season happens to be the same first season that the Bucs also bring in Tom Brady. But, you know, and obviously you don't win the Super Bowl because of the kicker. You win the Super Bowl and they get there because of who they brought in at number 12. But Ryan had a tremendous season. And I asked him how winning a Super Bowl, the thought is you win a Super Bowl and it's impactful on your life. And he just goes about telling me like how the very next day, we're at the park, him and his wife and 2 kids, and everything's normal. And he talked about how God was working through his life all throughout that season, and how winning the Super Bowl is amazing. The ring is great. He loves it. But at the end, it was just seeing the way his teammates' lives and his life, and God was working through them through various things. Remember, it was a very difficult year. It was the COVID year, all of that stuff. He's like, that was way more cool than hoisting the Lombardi Trophy and earning that Super Bowl ring. And to have that kind of perspective, to me, is tremendous. And it just lets everyone know out there that no matter what you accomplish in life, in your profession, that there's something greater for you. And whether you're at the top of your profession or somewhere in the middle, or you're struggling, you're looking to find your way, your identity doesn't lie in what you do or how you make your living. Your identity is found in our Lord Jesus Christ. And for someone to be a Super Bowl champion, and to come to that realization, to say that other players on the team feel the same way. I thought was just a wonderful story for him to share.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining me. Really a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing your work in the AP and Faith on the Field, and looking forward to the next time we chat as well.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Keep up the great work, my friend.